Kate Nash, writer and founder of Purple Space. We are delighted to collaborate with MSD, known as Merck, in the US and Canada on this Authenticity series, a collection of 7 conversations with extraordinary colleagues about their experiences of disability and work. It can be difficult to work for a large corporation and talk about your disability experience. That's true in the pharmaceutical industry and indeed across the full range of organisations that we work with at Purple Space. In publishing these conversations, MSD wants to help normalise the experience of disability by sharing the stories of colleagues with both direct and indirect experience of disability. In so doing, MSD aims to help colleagues with disabilities and allies to build resilience and trust, to make it easier for them to share their stories and, when it is required, request the adjustments or the accommodations they need to thrive. In this conversation, we meet David Peacock. David is the President of Global Vaccines for Merck, known as MSD outside of the United States and Canada. Over the course of his career with the company, David has lived and worked in diverse locations around the world. His roles have included Managing Director of MSD in the United Kingdom and Ireland, Chief Financial Officer for MSD in Japan, Managing Director of MSD in Hong Kong and Macau, and most recently, President of the Asia Pacific region based in Singapore. David and his wife are proud parents of 2 teenage children, and the family now live in Rahway, New Jersey. We offer our thanks to David for sharing his story of managing mental health and a successful career so that others might learn from his experiences and insights. I hope you enjoy listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. David, I am so excited about our conversation together. Welcome. It is lovely to have you with us.
Thanks, Kate. It's brilliant to be able to join you today.
Brilliant. So let's tuck into a little of your story. You've shared with me and colleagues some experiences that you have had with mental health challenges. I wonder if we could start with you sharing a little bit about the impact of those on your professional journey.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I think that the first thing I'd say is that any challenges I've had around mental health, they're not just impacting on my professional journey, they've impacted my life journey. And I think that's true for everyone. However, it is worth recognizing that in our personal lives, we tend to have a higher degree of control over the environments in which we're in and the people that surround us. Whereas in our professional lives, oftentimes we just don't. And that can add incremental stress, anxiety, things that tend to trigger a downward fall from a mental health standpoint. And so within my own life, I think what I've learned over time is to really more around how to deal with coping mechanisms when I am feeling significant stress or doubts about self-worth or all these things that tend to go on in my head. I've learned more to recognize them for what they are. And I think that's something that comes with time. 2, to focus my attention on what I can control. I know the genesis of your question is, well, has it impacted me as I've developed in my own career, et cetera? I don't think so, but I don't know. I don't really have a comparison for what my life would have been without. But what I do know is that I don't know if it's as a result of, I'm sorry to be clear in terms of my own mental health challenges, they're primarily depression that I deal with. I think my depression has forced me to be introspective. And I think that has benefited me in some ways professionally. In that I believe I know myself better than I would have otherwise as a result of spending a lot of time in my head. And that, I think, in certain aspects has enabled me to be better at my job because I'm more confident about who I am relative to the feedback of others. But as I said, there are times where I have to actually kind of remind myself or understand the physical feelings of pressure, knowing that those would trigger a mental cascade potentially, knowing that I need to interrupt or withdraw myself from certain situations. So these are the things that I've learned to build into my professional being.
I get you, David. And just remind us, when did you first experience depression, and what are the tools and the techniques that you might use now to notice when it might be reappearing again, and the things you can do practically to support yourself?
So I was first formally diagnosed with depression in my late 20s. But my experiences with depression go well beyond that. I think I have there's a strong family history of depression. I'm one of a member of a family of 5 is our immediate family. 4 of us are under treatment for various conditions, either severe depression, bipolar disorder, or depression like myself. And so I've kind of grown up with it. So to speak. I actually thought through most of my early life I had avoided it. And then I found myself as in my late 20s coming into environments where stress levels increased, and I found that I didn't have the coping mechanisms that I thought I would, and the control that I thought I would have. And so that's really been that's kind of the history of it. It is. And then I was able and fortunate enough once again to know to seek support externally and professional support to help me better understand. I started off my journey with depression with medication, and that helped for a period of time, but there are downsides to medication as well. And the balance of the downsides versus the upsides for me were off. And so I withdrew from medication, and then really through just, as I said, the coping techniques I've learned to control it. For me, I am fortunate in that I'll say rigorous physical exercise benefits me. And so I went through a period where I threw myself into, I'd say, endurance exercise. I started doing Ironman competitions, not because I'm competitive, but because I felt better as a result of kind of the training. Now, I don't do that anymore. I don't have the time to do that anymore, but I do know when I'm under those stresses that I need to do something physically to rebalance perhaps some of the neurotransmitters. This is stuff I read, I don't know. But I know it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the other thing I found has helped me a lot, it's once again, it's kind of like, waking up to what many people have known for many centuries, but really Stoic philosophy, those principles around focusing on what you can control. Don't allow imagined troubles to control your life, right? Recognize anxiety for what it is, which is something external to you, as opposed to something that is internal to you. Like reading those sorts of books and things have also helped me keep a better perspective. And then the final thing is I ask for help, right? When I do have kind of relatively, dark imaginings or whatever, I talk to people. And I've been fortunate enough to build relationships, friendships, both within my professional environment and outside, to talk to people. And an outside perspective is really important sometimes. It regrounds you.
David, really wise reminders of the things that we can do to support ourselves when we might notice a period of an episode of depression. It's really great stuff. I wonder if we could, I suppose, invite you to talk about a moment or moments when others at work have supported you. Maybe another business leader, you have an extraordinary career yourself, but you're also surrounded by other business leaders who may or may not have been aware. But do you have any stories about individual colleagues who have supported you on your journey?
There's been many, quite honestly, and I've been lucky that way. I think so. It starts off in a professional setting for me, is simply times where where people have, I just say, had the courage to kind of break the barrier and just ask me, am I okay? Right. And it can be that something simple as to being like, hey, you seem off. Right. What's going on? And a lot of people just won't do that. They'll ignore it. They'll think that they're encroaching in your personal space. But I've been lucky to have a number of colleagues that have over time asked. And on the reciprocal time, I think I've gotten to a point of comfort enough to say, no, I'm not. Right. And that's led to conversations. And what you find more often than not is that everybody, almost everybody I've ever met in my life has some experience, either direct or indirectly, with mental health. And so they can lean on a little bit of that. Now, it's not true. There are some people, quite frankly, that are just jerks, right? But they tend not to be the people that are going to ask you, is everything going all right? Right? How are you feeling today? You seem tired. There's little things that people will use to try and pull that out. For me, I have had people that have cared enough to watch closely enough to step in. I had a manager very earlier in my career where I was really trying to, drive, deliver, etc. Who pulled me out of my kind of office one day and just said, "Hey, can we talk?" And took me out of the office and just said, "Look, your behavior is kind of erratic right now, right? People aren't enjoying working with you, right? Because he's like, it seems you're trying to be what you think everybody wants as opposed to being who you actually are." And that was a really pivotal moment for me. Because I was putting up a mask, trying to cover everything that was going on inside me to be what I thought they wanted me to be. And in turn, what I was actually being was a jerk, right? And I was trying to be a perfectionist and all these other things that weren't particularly helpful or conducive of a good team environment. And so that kicked off a number of conversations with that manager over time. He became a lifelong mentor.
It's a wonderful story, David, and you talk what you're describing is a basic humane curiosity to support people who may be struggling. And of course, we all know the difference between intrusive questions
Yeah.
as opposed to those that might elicit a better conversation to support someone. Yeah, wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
And David, broadening this out now, I mean, you work for an extraordinary organisation. We work with Jean and Hilary and the others in the Capability Network, and we know Merck are very committed to go further and faster when it comes to building inclusivity. But from your perspective, what qualities should a workplace embody in order to create an environment that supports people, particularly with mental ill health challenges, but it could include all people with disabilities?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, and I do want to recognize our company for, as you said, really investing into this area. The first thing is we want to create an environment where people are comfortable being themselves, right? An environment where people feel safe to be themselves and being authentic. And I think it does start from the top in terms of having leaders willing to engage in these conversations, create the right spaces for these sorts of conversations to talk about all aspects of diversity, if you will. What does it mean to be an inclusive organization? One where people can feel confident in themselves and there's a good business purpose for this, right? When people are confident in themselves, right, they perform better in their roles, right? If you don't have inner confidence, if you spend too much time worrying what others are thinking about yourself, you're not focusing on your job. And so it's for the better of a business to actually create an environment where people feel great. I think the other thing that our company has done well is actually put in place policies that are supportive of the health of our employees, not just the physical health, but the mental health. And policies that recognize that whether you break an arm or you break down, both are not good for the business or for the continuity of the employment. We need to support people in both of those circumstances. And then the final piece, of course, is how do you work toward an environment where there is true equality of opportunity? And I don't think any organization in the world's fully gotten there yet. But what the important thing is, are the company, are the leadership committed to that ideal, right? Where regardless of a person's physical, mental, social characteristics, if they're able to do a role, they will be considered for that role with an equal opportunity. And those are the sorts of environment. And this company, and one of the things I love about working here, is all of those attributes are in place here. And we're committed. And my role now as I advance in my career is to try and support and broaden that out.
Wonderful, David. Well, let's tuck into that. You are uniquely placed as a leader yourself within the company to support the agenda. So how do you do that? How do you visibly support a culture of mental well-being?
Yeah. So first, conversations like this. Right. This is important. I do think one of the most important things that anyone in a leadership position can do is be authentic about themselves. I don't hide the fact that I've struggled with depression in the past, right? And I think that's important because we are encouraged in professional environments in many ways and historically to put on a mask. And I think that my job is to try and remove the mask a little bit, to let people know that we're human, right? That we have self-doubt, that we're not perfect. And so the first thing that I can do, and I feel a responsibility to do, is to openly talk in environments and just be open about it, right? And if I do that, it enables others to engage in those conversations. And the more of those conversations that we have, the better everybody is. The second thing is that recognizing that leaders saying, "Hey, we want to be inclusive and we support mental health," that's not enough alone. We have to actually show people that we're committed to that. And a lot of this comes down to the employee business resource groups that we have, right? Within Merck, sponsorship of the capability network, and sponsorship is not just hey, I'm supportive of this group, but at times I'm actually going to put resources. I'm going to create the space for people to build content, to build networks, to build community. And then it's not just picking one or two of these networks, but having a broad array of them that can work together, where they're within, once again, the Merck environment. It could be the Rainbow Alliance, it could be Next Generation. There's a lot of these different groups that recognize the unique characteristics of people and create safe spaces for communication. And so that's the next thing that we need to do. And the final piece is lean in and challenge pre-existing either notions or policies that do either intently, which is rare, but inadvertently more often discriminate, right? And society is moving on and modernizing. We have to make sure that our company maintains and keeps up with those, informed more often than not by the EBRGs themselves.
Great stuff, David. It is exciting to hear you talk with passion for an agenda that matters so much. What's your aspiration for the future? We live in a challenged world, but as you look out, as you look at different workplaces around the world, what's your hope for the future direction of inclusivity and, in particular, mental health support in the workplace?
Well, my hope is really aligned with those things that I think Merck is doing well, that we continue to build upon them.
Yeah.
Is that we do create a culture where people feel safe to bring themselves to work as they are. That we are able to create trust amongst each other such that people know they can ask for support. And then the next thing is to make sure that when somebody asks, that we know how to get them the support they need, right? And especially with mental health, because mental health can really um, show up, eventuate as crisis. And knowing to recognize and understand that crisis is real, it's immediate, it could be an emergency, and we have the resources to connect people to the support they need quickly is important. And there's still gaps there, right? But a lot of that also comes down to how do we train, right? How do we talk about this so people know the resources are there, whether they exist within our company or outside of our company. And that final piece is around the opportunity again, right? That we continue to see people who would traditionally be marginalized advancing,
Yeah.
right? Advancing because of the quality of what they do, right? Advancing because of the creativity that they bring, right? That's the critical thing, right? We need to continue to build role models, right? To show and break down the biases and the barriers that have existed.
Wonderful, David, wonderful. And look, as we close, my last question to you, David, is about what you have learnt about yourself. In an earlier conversation you shared with me too, you have challenges with your hearing, and even today, I'm sure all of our listeners, all of our audience can see a very open man who uses his leadership wisely. But for yourself, what have you learnt about yourself that you'll continue to apply into the future?
I think I've learned to be patient with myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've learned, I think I've learned this about myself, but I've learned this through others, right? Is to be humble, especially as you mentioned earlier. I am starting to lose my hearing. I have tinnitus, right? So I've got this constant ringing in my head, and these are things that didn't exist, earlier in my life. And so now I've got the humility to understand that I'm vulnerable, right? That at any point in time we could lose what we have, and so I've learned, I think, gratitude as well for the gifts that I have. But with that gratitude also comes the responsibility to make sure that I'm doing what I can for people that don't have, right, or are facing real challenges, et cetera. And so those are the things that I'm learning. And above all else, and it sounds trite, but we're on a journey, right? Every day is something new, and you don't know what it's going to bring. But if you face it with a degree of confidence and humility, I think you can overcome almost anything. And I think that's a sentence I probably would not have said 25 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, David, and wonderful wise words, wonderful wise words. David, it's been a joy to meet you and to talk to you about your experiences. Thank you so much for your time. Such a richness in our conversation, and I know it will support many, many others. So thank you.
Kate, thank you. I really appreciate the invitation, and I do hope what I already said can help. Right, it's the most important thing. So thank you. I appreciate the time.
Wonderful. Thank you.